stories. He really does believe these stories to be true, so please bear with him, and I thank you for humouring him during his speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, I apologise in advance for my speech. Unfortunately, the whole speech had to be rewritten yesterday, as after running it by a few people, the general response was that it was completely inappropriate. Unfortunately, most of the inappropriate stories are from my adult years, so this speech is largely about me and Paul growing up. I think this occasion merits a brief introduction. My name is Mark. A couple of years ago I moved to Australia and haven't been back home as much as I would have liked, but at the age of 25 Paul announced he was getting married, and I very happily accepted to be the best man and travelled back for the occasion. My mum grew up with Paul's mum, Nettie. That's my mum. She's definitely
that was quick. Try that one again.
Yeah, try it again.
Where's my mum?
Can't see her.
And in turn, I grew up with Paul. We've literally always been best friends, and I feel very privileged to have upbringing with such an odd young man. For me, it's been incredibly frustrating over the last few weeks to find anything bad about him. I've asked his work colleagues, childhood friends, and believe it or not, this man is surprisingly squeaky clean. Yeah. This squeaky clean image, however, only exists after meeting Lucy. Hence, the majority of this speech is based on childhood memories that are from before the discovery of alcohol as teenagers. However, those that are interested are more than happy to tell you stories to you individually about the post-alcohol phase. However, please be aware that these mostly involve Paul being sick somewhere, and generally one of us or both of us being naked. As a little boy, Paul was a rather strange child. He wouldn't go anywhere without his hand puppet, Ed the Duck. Do you think I would forget?
We've still got it as well.
I should have brought it.
Oh, that would have been cracking. When Paul was feeling shy, you would have to talk to Ed. And Paul would respond in Ed the Duck's voice. To this day, there's still a hint of Ed, and I'm sure that Paul will be more than happy to demonstrate later. If you haven't already heard, Paul is loud and always has been loud. At the age of 7, I used to sit on the stairs as a small boy with a puzzled look and watch Paul scream for hours at the front door every time his mum left the house to go running with my mum. On the day of the London Marathon, Paul was still going strong when they returned. He slept well that night. At primary school, Paul often came to the rescue when I got injured or hurt. On one occasion when I broke my arm and not being able to get help from anyone, he decided to take action and somehow managed to make a splint for my arm out of a Ghostbusters lunchbox with some flowers. I don't know to this day why he thought the flowers would help her. I was grateful at the time sacrificing a Ghostbusters lunchbox. Not a trivial thing. Growing up, I can only remember happy memories, and through the ages 7 through 9, I started to understand how Paul's mind worked. Not very well. At the age of 8, I convinced Paul that I was a robot. And then if you told anyone I was a robot, I would be taken away from primary school by the government for testing. One day I cut my arm, and when Paul asked why I bled, one day I cut my arm, and when Paul asked why I bled, I told him I wasn't actually a robot. I had gone through a life cycle change, and I was now an alien from the planet Fallopian. It was, however, nice to see him happy, though as for 2 years, he did think he was the coolest kid at school with his own pet robot. In the same 2-year period, whilst I was a professional robot, I also convinced Paul that he was spelling his second name wrong. For the next couple of years, and even occasionally to this day, he would spell his name wrong and not put an E after C. This is definitely one of my most fondest memories. Thanks, I've got a few thanks here. I'd like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank the bar staff at Buki. Without you, Paul's stag do couldn't have happened. Particular thanks goes to Bertie's Bar, Boozios and Sailors for allowing Pauline dressed as a giant cockroach. I can't really say too much about the stag do, but it now looks like the donkey and duck will be okay. Many thanks to the ushers who have managed to turn up sober. Thanks to Lucy and Paul for everything they've done for me over the last few years. I thank you both for trusting me enough to be best man. In all honesty, I've been incredibly nervous about how long to make this speech, but I was given some good advice to never make a speech longer than the groom can make love. So on that note, I'd like to propose to the bride and groom, to Paul and Lucy. Hip hip!
Hooray!